You thought you knew Luther Vandross, the voice, the music, the legend, but what you never knew was what lay hidden behind the doors of his mansion. After his death, when his mansion was finally opened, the world got a glimpse into a side of him no one expected. What was discovered inside left people questioning everything they thought they knew about the man behind the music. The truth waiting there was far stranger and more personal than anyone could have imagined. Luther's sanctuary of style. Luther Vandross was more than just a singer. He was the velvet voice that defined an era of soulful ballads and timeless love songs. With 8 Grammy Awards, millions of records sold worldwide, and a reputation as one of the greatest vocalists of all time, he became a household name. In the mid-1980s, when Luther Vandross was already recognized as one of the most distinctive voices in soul and R&B, he began shaping a home life that mirrored his artistry. In 1986, he purchased a striking modernist villa in Beverly Hills for $5.8 million. The house, originally designed by architect Hal Levitt in 1983, had previously belonged to entertainment journalist Rona Barrett. Levitt's reputation for glamorous yet livable modernist design was well established, and this nearly 10,000 square foot residence became one of his most admired projects. The villa offered privacy as well as space for gatherings. The layout reflected Levitt's signature use of openness and natural light. Its 6 bedrooms and 7.5 baths were organized around dramatic communal areas. A courtyard entry framed with ivy-led guests into a great room lined with glass walls, skylights, and inlaid wood floors. The house also included guest quarters, an elevator, an intercom system, and a private movie theater with seating for 50. For Vandross, who appreciated both performance and intimacy, this combination of scale and comfort made the home a fitting retreat. Although this Beverly Hills villa served as an important chapter in his life, it was not his only sanctuary. Later, as his career and fortune grew, Vandross expanded his vision of domestic elegance on the opposite coast. In the late 1990s, he purchased an expansive estate in Conyers Farm, a gated enclave in Greenwich, Connecticut, known for its exclusivity and rolling farmland setting. Conyers Farm had been developed from consolidated agricultural land into a community of stately homes for high-profile residents seeking both privacy and prestige. Here, Vandross commissioned a residence designed by Robert Lamb Hart of the architecture firm Hart Howerton. The resulting 16,000 square foot home carried a sense of grandeur without sacrificing warmth. The ceilings soared to 12 feet, and walls of windows created a constant dialogue with the surrounding landscape. The house was filled with carefully chosen details, from the chef's kitchen and wine tasting room to the expansive guest wing. Outdoor amenities extended the lifestyle further, with a swimming pool, pool house, and tennis courts spread across nearly 15 acres. Vandross once remarked that he was cursed with good taste, a line that captured both humor and truth. Friends and visitors noted that he had the instincts of a professional designer. In another life, he admitted he might have chosen interior design over music. Evidence of that sensibility was everywhere in his Connecticut home. He insisted on cashmere-covered walls in one room, which were considered so precious that he discouraged guests from touching them. Elsewhere, Lalique crystal tables, Tiffany lamps, and silk upholstery filled the spaces. Each item was chosen not only for luxury, but for the harmony it created within the environment. In 1989, Oprah Winfrey visited his residence and observed the layers of thought and style woven into each room. Despite her admiration, Vandross modestly described the place as still a work in progress. That phrase captured his perfectionism, a trait as evident in his interiors as it was in his music. But behind the walls of his beautiful mansion, Luther carried battles that no amount of fame or fortune could ease, struggles that would ultimately claim his life and reveal a side of him the world never truly knew. Luther's final days and hidden struggles. For most of his life, Luther dealt with complications that came with hereditary diabetes and hypertension. These conditions quietly followed him, sometimes surfacing in small ways but rarely made public. Diabetes and hypertension often go hand in hand, and for Luther, the risks grew with time. Doctors had warned him about the strain these conditions could place on his heart and circulation, but like many performers, he kept pushing forward. His love for music and performing outweighed his fears, even as the health challenges became harder to ignore. In April 2003, Luther's life changed in an instant when he suffered a massive stroke. The event was devastating, leaving him in a coma for nearly 2 months. For family, friends, and fans, it was a moment of deep uncertainty. Would he wake up? Would he ever sing again? When Luther finally regained consciousness, the road ahead was difficult. The stroke had left him with serious impairments. He struggled with mobility, and his speech was affected, which was especially painful for someone who built his life on the power of words and melody. Still, even in recovery, he held on to hope. Rehabilitation became part of his daily life, though progress was slow and often frustrating. Despite the challenges, Luther remained connected to the world through his music. His song, "Dance with My Father," became a heartfelt anthem that resonated with listeners everywhere. At the Grammy Awards in 2004, the song won Song of the Year. Though he could not appear on stage, he sent a pre-taped acceptance speech, thanking his supporters with grace. That same year, in May 2004, he appeared on The Oprah Winfrey Show. It was a rare and candid conversation. Luther spoke honestly about the reality of living after a stroke. He encouraged people to learn about the warning signs and take health risks seriously. While his body showed the marks of his struggle, his voice in that moment carried strength, honesty, and resilience. Sadly, his health continued to decline. On July 1, 2005, Luther Vandross passed away at JFK Medical Center in Edison, New Jersey. The official cause was a heart attack, a result of the long-term complications he had battled for years. His passing marked the end of a voice that had shaped generations of music lovers, leaving behind a legacy that remains unmatched. For those who knew him personally and for fans worldwide, it was a moment of deep loss. But even after his passing, Luther's story did not end there. When his mansion was opened, those who walked through its doors found traces of a man who had lived with both grandeur and solitude. There were secrets tucked away in his estate, details that spoke to the quieter side of his life, far from the flashing lights of fame. The discovery of these hidden pieces of Luther's world raised questions that only deepened the sense of mystery surrounding him. What exactly was uncovered in those private rooms? And how did it reshape the way people remembered the man behind the legendary voice? Secrets in Luther's estate. In December 2007, 2 years after his death, the doors to that hidden world were opened when Dawson and Nye organized an estate auction in Morris Plains, New Jersey. Over the course of 2 days, 1,041 lots were presented, drawing collectors, fans, and curious onlookers. What unfolded was astonishing. The sale generated $1.8 million, far surpassing expectations. The event didn't just disperse objects, it unveiled a mosaic of Luther's refined tastes, his lifestyle, and the personal world that had always remained behind closed doors. Among the treasures were pieces that spoke to his deep appreciation for art. The standout was a Picasso charcoal drawing, which sold for an impressive $141,600. Other gems included a Sam Francis abstract watercolor, fetching $59,000, and a David Hockney sketch that reached $18,880. These works were not merely investments, they revealed the singer's eye for creativity and beauty. Even in private, Luther surrounded himself with objects that carried a story, showing a side of him that went far beyond the music. Decorative pieces such as a Lalique cactus table, which sold for $26,550, and a Georg Jensen silver pitcher, valued at $22,420, reflected his love for rare and refined craftsmanship. But the auction didn't stop at high art. It also offered a glimpse into his day-to-day life, presenting items that ranged from glamorous to surprisingly ordinary. His wardrobe was on display, including mink coats that highlighted his flair for style, and diamond watches that sparkled with the life of a superstar. Yet tucked among them were handbags, crystal vases, and even simple thermoses, objects he used while on tour. Fans marveled at how these small details connected them to the man they adored. One of the most moving lots was a handwritten sheet of his song "If Only for One Night," which sold for $2,124. To hold that paper was to touch the heart of his creative process. Another notable item, a sales award for Whitney Houston's I'm Your Baby Tonight, reached $3,540, underlining his far-reaching influence in the industry. Even more intimate were personal documents, his driver's license, and credit cards. These artifacts, ordinary to anyone else, carried extraordinary significance to fans who saw them as windows into his private world. It was rare to see a star of Luther's stature laid bare through such everyday objects, yet each piece felt like a fragment of his story. Max Sadek, his longtime assistant, offered perhaps the most poignant reflection when he described one item. This mink-lined chair symbolized the lap of luxury, just how a star, a world-class entertainer, kind of lived it out in his private life too. His words captured the delicate balance of Luther's world, between the glittering stage persona and the man who found comfort in the details of his home. Although public records did not list his vehicles specifically, the mention of tour costumes and equipment suggested that even practical tools of his trade were part of the dispersal. This only deepened the sense that the auction was not just about wealth, but about dismantling a personal world that once revolved entirely around music, travel, and performance. While the treasures of his mansion revealed the life he lived in luxury, whispers about his personal life told a story far more guarded, one that remained behind closed doors until after his passing. The hidden self. Unlike many celebrities of his stature, Luther was intensely private. He never had a wife or girlfriend, and for a man who sang endlessly about love, this absence fueled speculation. People whispered, critics probed, and journalists wrote about what he never openly discussed: his sexuality. Meanwhile, several media outlets amplified the curiosity. In the 1980s and 1990s, at the very peak of his career, questions about whether Luther was gay lingered in the background. For many, it seemed to explain his decision to remain single. But being a gay black man during those decades was no simple matter. It was the height of the AIDS crisis, a time when prejudice, fear, and stigma were powerful forces. To admit such a truth could have cost him not only his career, but also the acceptance of a public that adored him for his romantic ballads. Adding to the rumors were constant reports about his health and dramatic weight changes. Luther had a lifelong battle with weight, sometimes ballooning, other times slimming down by dozens of pounds. In 1985, after losing 85 pounds, a British paper published the cruel claim that the change was due to him having AIDS. For Luther, this was too much. He filed a libel suit, determined not to let others define his story. That legal fight symbolized the control he fought to keep over his own narrative. He would let the world hear his voice, but not dictate his identity. Friends and collaborators, however, often hinted at what Luther never said publicly. Many later acknowledged that he was indeed gay, though fiercely protective of his privacy. For him, intimacy was something to be guarded, not displayed. It was not shame, but survival. In an era when being openly gay could derail a career in soul and R&B, silence became his shield. His friend Richard Marx remembered his lifestyle and said, "Everything was high-end and immaculately displayed." He loved beautiful things and enjoyed collecting pieces that showed off his taste. These weren't just material indulgences. They were safe spaces where Luther could live as himself, away from the gaze of fans and journalists. Behind the walls of those elegant rooms, he could laugh freely, decorate lavishly, and surround himself with friends who understood him. Luther's decision not to disclose his sexuality left many fans curious long after his passing. He gave the world love songs that could belong to anyone, regardless of gender or orientation. Still, the question remains, what did Luther yearn for most in his private world? Was the mansion filled with beauty and luxury enough to satisfy him, or did he carry a loneliness that even fame and fortune could never ease? Just like his hidden sexuality, there were other layers to Vandross' story. Let's go back and see what other secret he was guarding and what kind of struggles he silently carried through his life. From tenements to stardom. Luther Vandross' story begins in New York, where he grew up in the tough neighborhoods of Lower Manhattan and the Bronx. Life was not easy for him or his family. His father passed away when he was very young, and his mother raised him and his siblings mostly on her own. There were times when they had to rely on public assistance just to get by. Despite these struggles, Vandross found comfort in music. He had a natural talent for singing and a deep love for soulful melodies, and he dreamed of one day making it big. For him, music was more than just a passion. It was a way out, a path toward building a better life than the one he had known. As a young man, he worked his way into the music scene, not as a solo artist, but as a background singer. This step might have seemed small, but it became the foundation for everything that followed. Vandross' voice stood out, and soon he was in demand. He worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, including David Bowie. Singing backup gave him the chance to learn from established artists while quietly building the confidence that he too could stand in the spotlight. His rich, soulful sound couldn't be hidden forever, and it wasn't long before he began carving his own path. The big breakthrough came in 1981 with the release of his debut solo album, Never Too Much. The title track was a burst of charm and energy that introduced the world to his signature style, a mix of warmth, emotion, and unmatched vocal control. That song didn't just earn him fans. It marked the start of a solo career that would keep growing for decades. Vandross also began landing major collaborations, like his unforgettable duet Endless Love with Mariah Carey. These moments proved that he wasn't just a background singer anymore. He had become a star in his own right. But success in music is rarely a straight road. While Vandross had hits and loyal fans, he wasn't always dominating the charts in the way he hoped. This didn't discourage him, though. He kept recording, performing, and pushing forward, driven by his belief that his voice and songs deserved a wider audience. In a 2001 interview, he revealed just how much he longed for recognition at the highest level. He explained how he often spoke with music executive Clive Davis about wanting true mainstream success. For Vandross, the dream was never only about fame, it was about having his music reach as many people as possible. That dream came full circle in 2003 when he achieved what he had always hoped for. His album Dance with My Father, co-written with Richard Marx, soared to number 1, and its title track became his first chart-topping single. The timing was bittersweet. Vandross had just suffered a serious stroke, and while he was recovering, the song took on even deeper meaning. It was a heartfelt tribute to his late father, and listeners everywhere connected with its raw honesty and tenderness. The success of the song showed how powerfully Vandross could touch people's hearts, even during one of the most difficult moments of his own life. The recognition that followed was proof of his lasting impact. Dance with My Father won 4 Grammy Awards, including the coveted Song of the Year. Vandross, too ill to attend the ceremony, accepted the honors through a pre-taped message. Even from a distance, his resilience shone through. It was clear that he had not only achieved the mainstream success he once longed for, but also cemented his place in music history. Luther Vandross never gave up, no matter the struggles, and his songs became the soundtrack of love, loss, and hope for millions. When he passed, the world felt an emptiness only his voice could fill. Now, let's take a closer look at the legacy he left behind. Family will and reborn influence. Luther Vandross's passing in 2005 left behind not only a silence in the music world, but also questions about how his legacy would be carried forward. Known for his unmatched voice and heartfelt lyrics, Vandross had carefully built a career that touched millions. But beyond the stage lights, he was also a man with a family, a private life, and a vision for how he wanted to be remembered. While the exact details of his will were never made public, one thing became clear over the years: his estate and family made every effort to honor his values. Vandross was deeply devoted to the people close to him, and the work done in his name reflects that care. Interviews with family and those who managed his estate often pointed to his belief that music was not just entertainment, but a way of building community and leaving behind something greater than oneself. That spirit became the guiding force of his legacy. In the years following his passing, Vandross's estate partnered with Primary Wave, a move that ensured his catalog would not just be preserved, but also introduced to younger audiences. This partnership focused on publishing rights and legacy management, ensuring that new generations could rediscover classics like Never Too Much and Dance with My Father. Instead of fading into history, Vandross's songs remained present in streaming playlists, commercials, and tributes, reminding the world that his music still belonged in everyday life. The estate also found creative ways to celebrate him beyond the music charts. In 2023, fans were introduced to a unique collaboration with Waterford Crystal. A limited edition collection called Luther 81X was launched to honor his debut single Never Too Much. Only 500 sets were made, each etched with details inspired by his lyrics, such as 1,000 Kisses, Never Too Much. More than just a collector's item, the proceeds supported the Luther Vandross Foundation, turning art into a way of giving back. The crystal tribute reflected both luxury and sentiment, a reminder of Vandross's elegance and his belief in spreading love through every note he sang. Philanthropy played a central role in keeping his memory alive. The Luther Vandross Foundation has awarded over $1.5 million in scholarships to students at historically Black colleges and universities. Education and community uplift were close to Vandross's heart, and the foundation ensures that young people with dreams, especially in music, find opportunities to grow. These scholarships are more than financial aid. They are a continuation of Vandross's lifelong commitment to helping others believe in themselves and their potential. After his passing, tributes from fellow stars poured in, painting a picture of how deeply he was admired by his peers. Mariah Carey, who had performed with him, called him one of the greatest voices of our time and said she felt honored to share a song with him. Aretha Franklin remembered him as a gentle soul with a masterful gift and noted how his work had raised the standard for singers everywhere. Beyoncé praised his ability to turn simple words into deep emotions, saying his music was like a hug you didn't know you needed. Quincy Jones spoke about his artistry and discipline, pointing out that Vandross's attention to detail made every song sound effortless, even though it was the product of great dedication. These tributes were more than words. They were evidence of how his voice left an imprint, not just on fans, but on some of the greatest artists of his generation. His family and close friends also carried forward his legacy in quieter, personal ways. They spoke in interviews about his love for gatherings, laughter, and intimate connections, often saying that he treated his fans like extended family. His last appearance on The Oprah Winfrey Show in 2004 left many moved. Reflecting on life and mortality, he said, "Living with these thoughts." Living with. The last chapter of a book, it was a statement that felt like a soft farewell, delivered with the same grace that marked his career. Even now, years later, his music continues to play at weddings, family reunions, and moments of personal reflection. For many, it is not just music, but a memory, an echo of love, loss, and hope that never grows old. His estate's careful management, the foundation's scholarships, and the Crystal Tribute all serve as reminders that Vandross was more than a singer. He was a storyteller, a philanthropist, and a man whose voice still speaks long after he is gone. What do you think? What part of Luther's life or music touched you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below.